1879, a hoisting engineer at the Tiger dropped the cage down the shaft with 5 men in it. 3 were killed and were buried in the Bradshaw City Cemetery. After a funeral procession from the Tiger that included most of the miners and businessmen in the Southern Bradshaws. Others buried in the cemetery include a Tiger superintendent who smashed his hand in a conveyor belt and died of lockjaw, and a girl who fell into the Bradshaw City well and drowned. The original wooden grave markers are no longer there, having reportedly been used for firewood by campers several years ago. The cemetery is located on a ridgetop between the Tiger Mine and Bradshaw City. The area in which Crown King is now located was then called Bradshaw Basin, and other than a few scattered claims, the only noteworthy activity there was when C.A. Luke hauled machinery and materials into the basin through Minnehaha Flat and erected a stamp mill. Luke's Bradshaw venture was not successful, and Luke moved to the Phoenix area. His nephew was Frank Luke, the famous World War I aviator. The mill passed through many hands, but eventually was expanded into the mill for the Crown King mine. The Crown King group of mines were not seriously developed until 1887 and 8. The original claim was said to have been discovered by a Walnut Grove schoolteacher who traded it for a saddle to Orrin F. Place. Place then traded half his share to the mine to Bradshaw City storekeeper Noah C. Shekels to pay off his bill. These 2 men then persuaded a visiting Illinois banker, George P. Harrington, to raise the capital to develop the claims. Harrington was to become a dominant force in the Bradshaws for many years. At first, Place was put in charge of the mining operations at the Crown King, but proved unsatisfactory, so Harrington and Shekels took over. Place then retaliated by starting litigation to regain control, which kept the mine closed down by injunctions for years. The conflict was so heated that during a stockholders' meeting in Illinois, Place tried to shoot Harrington. Eventually, the mill tailings were worked over profitably, and the total production was about $1.5 million. Later efforts to reopen the mine have not been very successful. Most of the town of Crown King used to be close to the mine, but all that is left of this older Crown King is a few pieces of rusty metal and the holes left by bottle hunters. As activity at the Crown King decreased, the town moved to its present location, where the depot of the new railroad was located. In 1902, the first ranger district in Arizona was established at Crown King. The district had been added to the Prescott Forest Reserve, and its new cowboy ranger was Theodore A. Newbold. Roscoe Wilson, on the right, spent 2 years as the 7th District Ranger, as well as working as a miner and prospector in the area for many years. He later wrote a popular historical column for the Arizona Republic. Prior to becoming a ranger, he had lived in a tent house at the present site of the Crown King Work Center office. In 1979, the Crown King Ranger District was combined with the Thumb Butte District to become the Bradshaw District. Construction of the Bradshaw Mountain Railroad started in Mayer in 1902 and reached Crown King in May 1904. Its purpose was to give a boost to the faltering mining operations in the area. But apparently, the mines did not live up to expectations. The railroad, which was a tremendously expensive engineering feat, was removed in 1926 without having fully accomplished its mission. The Cleator Crown King Road is built mainly on the former railroad grade. Before the tracks were removed, Local residents used a wagon fitted with railroad wheels to get up and down the mountain. A horse would pull the wagon up to the Crown King, but it could coast all the way back down to Cleator with a firm hand on the brake. A depot town was built on the line just before it began switchbacking up the steep slopes to Crown King. The town was named Middleton after Frank Middleton, the developer of the nearby DeSoto mine. It contained several buildings that included railroad buildings, a school, the DeSoto mine offices, and the station for its tram line up to the mine. The town was dismantled along with the railroad, and no trace remains of it. Cleator was originally a train stop between Middleton and Mayer. It was then called Turkey Creek Station, and its post office was established in 1903. James P. Cleator arrived in 1904 and went into business with local storekeeper Leverett Nellis. When the two men split up, Cleator kept the store, which he operated for several more decades. Besides being a train depot in its early years, it also served several nearby mines, including the Swastika, the Bluebell, and the DeSoto. Turkey Creek Station became Cleator in 1925. And by the time the railroad was abandoned, Cleator was well on its way to becoming a ghost town. There were also two cattle ranches in the Cleator area, the AY and Double F. The Double F was built by John Cordes, pictured here, for his son Fred. When John died, Fred returned from military duty during World War I and took over the ranch with his new wife, Claire. They owned it for many years, and then kept it as part of their new ranch, which they built near the town of Bumblebee in about 1935. John Cordes had operated Cordes Station, an old stage stop that he turned into the main sheep dipping and shearing station on the sheep trail between Flagstaff and the Phoenix area. Claire was a Champy and came from her family's ranch near Castle Hot Springs, just south of the Bradshaws. One of her brothers was Lawton Champy, a world-famous rodeo cowboy who won belt buckles at Madison Square Garden and had even appeared in Europe. Claire's sister Annie and her husband Clyde Douglas started one of the first family guest ranches in central Arizona by fixing up the old Champy Ranch on French Creek. The Orabelle group of claims on the southwestern edge of the Bradshaws at the head of Humbug Creek were first worked in 1871 during the original tiger activity, but because of the isolated location and the fear of hostile Indians, the claims were not worked much until 1878, when a group of Californians hired local road builder Jim Patterson to bring in a stamp mill. The mill was set up, but was said to be only good for grinding coffee. One version of this story claims that Patterson did not build a road, but winched the wagon loads of equipment down the side of Wasson Peak, thus fulfilling his obligations without having to incur the expense of building a road. In 1887, Isaac T. Stoddard,